Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Bayonetta 2 Infinite Climax video walkthrough. This is Chapter 1, Noatun, the City of Genesis. As I mentioned in my previous video, with every new chapter I'm going to be changing the weapons that I use. I'm also going to be intentionally not mixing up between my two weapon choices during combos and during combat, because I want to focus on the ones I'm wearing instead of doing two at the same time. That way, if you're looking for some content with some different combinations of weapons, I have it covered and it's not just a brief thing of it happening in a few seconds. But these guys right now are a new enemy, and they are called Fidelities. So we're underwater at this point, and it makes combat just a little bit more laboured than normal. It's nothing too big. And this is an enemy that's actually quite cowardly. They can float away, they can use these kind of bombs they drop. They lay these oxygen mines. That's what they look like. You see what I mean? He fucked off and ruined everything. Look at him. What is he doing? That was going so well, and then he's just like, nah, I'm gone. And he's literally one hit away from death. Evil, evil person. You'll also notice that I'm wearing a costume. Before I started recording the walkthrough, I farmed a lot of halos to buy a ton of costumes, and I have to be quite honest, most of them are not too great. For the majority, I would be so distracted while playing, I really didn't want to wear them, because they're literally just arse in your face. And don't get me wrong, guys, Bayonetta has a fantastic bottom. I am quite the arse man, I suppose you could say, to generalise things. But when I'm recording a guide, the last thing on my mind is the carnal desires that stir in my loins from said sights. And when a lot of the magazines mention that Bayonetta is sexist and things, there is a fundamental underlining of sexism. It's a stereotype, it's a trope, but it's one that she kind of embraces, and it's kind of the thing that empowers her and makes her the character she is. Does it make it any less a sexist trope and you know, over-sexualization of women as idols? No, but it's always been done in kind of a sense of fun, I think. But there is no doubt about it, there is a perviness at its heart, and I can't help but approve, because I'm a hot-blooded man, and we're essentially biological engines that are hot-wired to reproduce, and, you know, we can't really help it, and unfortunately it does kind of suck, because it's the basest of instincts. And these outfits are just, they're crazy. Schoolgirl stuff, short skirts, you know, all the, even the Princess Peach and the Daisy ones, insanely short skirts. To cut a big tangent that was unnecessary completely short, there's too much arse in my face the entire time, so instead I picked this one. It's a little bit more refined. One thing you'll notice when I do wicked woo-weave moves, Bayonetta doesn't lose her clothes. She keeps the costume on. It's one of the drawbacks, I suppose you could say, if you're interested in that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's a little bit more classy, shall we say. So if you're wondering why I'm not getting naked all the time, it's because of the outfit I'm wearing. And I was going to change costume almost every level, but I recorded far too much in this one, so I think I'm going to probably do the full game in it. And it's quite ironic, because my favourite costume is the one you start with. I think the new design on Bayonetta is absolutely amazing. I think she looks wonderful. I think the detail and the modelling on her face, like, I never thought she was traditionally attractive in the first game. She had this kind of headmistress nature about her, you know, the English nanny kind of discipline, authoritative figure, and it never really did much for me. A lot of people said she looked like Sarah Palin. I assume she's a stupid politician from America, because I've heard some of her quotes and they were egregiously stupid. But I don't really know too much about that person. I assume she looks a little bit like Bayonetta, and I just never really saw what people saw, aside from the, you know, the proportions of certain body parts. But now, I think she looks very charming. I think there's a handsomeness to her face, like a beauty that she didn't have before, and I think it's a testament to good design. I really like her new hair. Overall, I think aesthetically this game is wonderful. By the way, this guy is really tough. And this guy's called Valiance. He has two moves that completely baffle me. The first one you just witnessed, it's a lightning fast grab that even when you press dodge, you seem to miss. Like, I don't think I've ever effectively dodged it. It's something I definitely need to learn, because he catches me with it every time. The second one is those super quick hits he does with his backhand when he holds the sword in reverse, kind of in a stabbing position, because they come out very quick and they can be very difficult to see because it's quite a chaotic battle. When you stun him, you can attack his face, which is his head, believe it or not, and it's on his sword. It's a really interesting design. And one thing you'll notice as well is I'm using the scythe, which I think, is it called the Chernabog? This particular scythe. The reason why I'm using it is because it's the weapon I'm going to be using for the next level, and I found the hammer a little bit too slow for this guy. It does massive damage, the hammer, but it's really difficult to do anything quite interesting with, and sometimes you kill things a little bit too quickly with it, which sounds a little bit like a contradiction. And speaking of a contradiction, I said on the first video I was going to try and get the names for things, and the first thing that I said was wrong. I called the flame guy who turned up a Glamour. Glamour's actually the dragon that turned up. His name was Urbane, and I completely just... I don't know what happened there, bit of a brain fart, I guess. I'm not too sure what this hammer's called. It's called some kind of crazy Russian, Japanese thing. I'm using it for the first ever time in this video. What you're watching right now is my first ever use of the weapon. The creatures that were fighting these angels are called Catchit and Compassion. And then there's these two fidelities. I taunted then to keep my combo going in between waves. If you hold down on the D-pad, Bayonetta will taunt and your combo meter will not drain. However, you can gaze opponents, which is why that creature's gone red. And when an enemy is gazed, it has more armor, it does more damage, it's more aggressive, and it's pretty bad news. Gazed enemies are kind of crazy and incredibly dangerous, so be careful with it. Unless you're a pro and you want to learn quickly. The cool thing about them is because they're more aggressive, it tends to be a lot more easy to dodge them because they don't fuck about as much. They go straight in for blood and you can just respond in kind. But the Catchit and Compassions, they're this game's equivalent of Deers and Decorations, or Deer and Decorations. They're an interesting creature. They're one of those flying enemies that turn up quite a lot that if you give them too much space, they can do a lot of damage on this game. The Deer and Decorations were kind of decorations. That's all they were. They were like Christmas tree baubles. They hung around seasonally and you beat the shit out of them. Because, you know, that's what we do with Christmas trees. But these new ones, a little bit different. And that's kind of the theme of Bayonetta 2. Enemies attack much more frequently now. But for some reason, the majority of the attacks are slower. So I find it harder to dodge. Because before I could rely on my reflexes and just watch for them and respond. On this game, I'm finding myself doing it early a lot, so you have to really think about your evade a little bit more on this, and I'm not too sure if I prefer it or what, but it's a little bit jarring. Now this is hilarious. I didn't actually realise you could press attack buttons here to make him do things, because I'd never done this. I had no idea what was happening. And then before the end of my tenure on the pony, I realised you could press buttons. But this creature here, a very interesting aim. I think it's just an accolade with a shield, but I could be wrong, folks. As I've mentioned, I'm going to try to divulge the names of the creatures, but without an accurate bestiary next to me, it could be quite difficult. I will make a conscious effort in future videos between them to learn the names a little bit better. This guy right now, I believe, is called Urbane, and there's two of them, so that's the big difference here on the difficulty. The trick to fighting these creatures is to stay at kind of a mid-range with one of them. If you stay at a mid-range with one of them, the other one can't get to you and the other one shouldn't attack. And at mid-range he'll do these punches. They're essentially hooks. He telegraphs them quite well, but they're quite fast as well, so they're a fun medium to dodge. Because this enemy is elemental, I'm not too sure if using the Undine on ice would be a better choice here. But because I'm currently rocking the scythe, which I said at the beginning of the video, didn't I, that I was going to stick with one of the weapons, and I'm swapping between them. So, once again, folks, I tried my best to stick with one weapon, but I forget, you know. I get excited, and, you know, accidents happen, but at all times you're going to see me shooting, because shooting is going to keep my combo going, and I'm just going to alternate between both of them. This arena is perfectly fine for this fight. It's... Oh, I just picked up a weapon there. That's quite interesting to see. One thing you will notice that these creatures have, they have abilities to jump at you. One of the new design choices in Bayonetta 2 is a lot of enemies have jump attacks, and that's something I'm not used to. Because for the most, aside from a couple, the first game didn't really have them. Not to this extent where they go above you, and sometimes on this game when stuff goes above you like that, you can't see them. And the only real time I had issue on Bayonetta 1 with creatures being above me was Jean, or Jean. She would do a dive kick from the air or a heel stomp, and it was very dangerous because she did it from off screen. And if you were listening to the game, you could hear her do it, so sometimes you could avoid her that way. But on this game, there's a lot of enemies that jump, and it's just something I'm not accustomed to. And it's one of those things I need to practice, and at the moment, it's been kicking my ass quite a lot. But this is highlighting quite well another example of an issue I have with Bayonetta 2. I mentioned it in the demo, and it's completely true in the game, and I'm not too sure what it is. But did you see how long that took for how much I was hitting them? And if you watch the life bars when I'm hitting them with Wicked Weaves, the enemies seem to have got a massive buff, or Bayonetta's Wicked Weaves and combos in general have had a massive nerf, and I'm not too sure which it is. I think it's a bit of both. But the result is, fights seem to take longer than they did before, and I believe it's a balance been made to compensate for the Infinite Climax. And the Infinite Climax is when you have a full magic bar, and you can get 3 in this game, you activate it and you get unlimited magic, and every single move you do is pretty much a Wicked Weave. It's kind of like the serious / infinite mode in the previous game that you went into against bosses, and you'll notice on this game, Bayonetta doesn't do that, which I think is a shame. I really liked that mode, I thought it was interesting. However, this is the Clamour boss, and he is not the Chapter 2 boss apparently, he's the Chapter 1 boss, so once again my lack of knowledge with this game is shining through. I do apologise to those sticklers who want everything to be correct. This is a pretty simple fight. If you're good at dodging and you know how to punish, you should be okay here. Once again, I'm using the scythe because it's faster. I think the consensus at this point was it might be the first time I've ever used the hammer, but I didn't really like it because it was slow as fuck and I didn't know what I was doing. One of the things I noticed too with it is a lot of the combos are very front heavy, and the front half of it, which is the hammer attacks, are very slow. So unless you're going to be doing dodge offset, it's going to be a weapon that's tough to chain, and it's tough to do much with. So at this moment I'm going to be using a lot of the scythe. The equipment that I have on, the accessories, for those wondering, people who know the game well will know I just use the Moon of Mahakala, which is a counter tool, which enables you to push the analog towards an attack and you'll block it. If you block it with precise timing, you'll get witch time. But once again, another tweak of balance to the game, which I'm not a big fan of. The Moon of Mahakala no longer gives you an insane amount of witch time. It gives you a very modest amount of witch time, which kind of makes it pointless in my mind. Still a powerful tool, and incredibly powerful if you mash it, which can be very easy to do, but I don't recommend it, because good timing will always be a better way to learn than just mashing and getting lucky. But for those projectiles, when Glamour fires the ice, all you have to do is bash the analogs towards him. Just keep flicking it as fast as you can, and once you hit the first one, you'll chain the rest. Of course, if you miss the first one, you might be bouncing backwards. But that is the end of Chapter 1 and the end of the first phase of that fight. Thank you very much for watching. Please excuse my lack of familiarity with this game. It is very new, and a lot of the things I used to know are very different in this game, so it's thrown me off a lot, and I'm going to be discussing them in length to give you some information about what they were, what they are now, and how we have to adjust to enjoy Bayonetta 2. So thank you very much for watching, and you take care now.